Coming up on Bloom, a new handbook is out for guys that want to be better husbands. A Tampa entrepreneur and philanthropist is out with a new book called Kickass Husband, and he has created a platform to help couples create happy and fulfilling relationships with their partners. So I'm super excited to welcome Matthew Hoffman to Bloom. Matthew, it's so great to see you.
Nice to see you too, and thanks for having me on today.
So the motivation behind the book, I mean, I know that you pretty much live up to the book's title personally.
You're kind.
So what made you write the book?
Well, it's interesting. I'm in an accountability group of 5 men that we meet once a month, and after years of seeing and hearing what I did with my wife, they said, you've got to write a book. And I'm sure when any friends tell you got to write a book, you're saying, well, that's your dream, not mine. But I heard it long enough and had a great marriage and wanted to share with other men so they could level up if they didn't know how. And so
what's some of the advice that you give them when it comes to leveling up?
You know, the biggest thing that we try to focus on, Gayle, is prioritization. And if you're not looking at your marriage and prioritizing it as your #1 relationship in life, that's kind of where it starts right there. And then there's 3 concepts that we call the 3 C's. And those 3 C's are commitment, communication, and conflict resolution. And if you're starting and want to have an immediate impact, that's a great place to start.
And you know, I in reading up on your book, and I know it's soon to be released, so much happens in life. Like, you start off with the fire, you start off with those feelings of love, and then they kind of simmer down as kids come, life comes, job changes, city changes. You know, a lot can, you know, turn your relationship upside down. So what's the key to staying steady through it all, the 3 C's?
Sure. Well, that's a great question, because, Gayle, I found myself in that position after 20 years of marriage. Happy, kids, career, life, involved in the community, but it wasn't what it was when we first got married. And so my wife and I, Kim, said, we got to double down, and we got to really get back to the roots of what attracted us to each other in the first place, and that started with our commitment. We knew we were committed to each other, there wasn't any issue there, but we weren't communicating as well as we could, and we certainly weren't resolving conflicts the best way.
Now, do you deep dive into everything from not only communication, but do you like, you know, keeping the passion alive in your relationship? Because, you know, that's part of it.
It is, it is. You know, the book is like 52 short chapters. There are little stories and anecdotes. And my co-author, Chris Cambis, is a licensed marriage therapist, and he talks about, after a story or chapter of mine, why you want to do it, what happens if you do, and what happens if you don't. Because I didn't really want the book to be a bunch of nice stories, but to really be things that men and women could apply in their relationship. And commitments in there, conflict resolution, communication, and it's really kind of decoding and figuring out what can you start doing in your relationship right now to prioritize your spouse.
So in your research of putting this book together, what are we doing wrong? Like, what are some steps that maybe some actionable steps that we can start taking right now to pivot?
Absolutely. So in talking about conflict resolution, that's something that comes up a lot, is how do we resolve the conflicts? And if you don't handle them when they're small, they can become really big dumpster fires that can have a huge negative impact. And one of the things for you got to realize 65% of all conflicts you can't resolve in a relationship. So that means only a third we can solve. So what do you do with that 65%? You have to seek understanding. And that requires commitment and good communication, so you can figure out what's going on under the surface and understand the feelings of your spouse. You know, everybody's entitled to feel the way they feel. You can't minimize it and say you can't feel that way, just get over it. That's not such a big deal, because if somebody feels that way, if I feel that way or my spouse does, we have to understand and recognize and be empathetic with them on that.
I think that this is going to be really interesting for readers because, and I mean, I might just be thinking what's in Gayle's mind, but I'm going to go ahead and say it out loud. You know, a lot of times women take on the role of trying to fix everything in the relationship with this, and they carry a lot of different weights through life. I think it's kind of cool to see it through the husband's eyes and through a man's perspective, because you're kind of stepping up to the plate and leading by example for other guys. So what do you hope that the reader takeaway is?
I mean, I hope that the reader takes away that it's a bilateral street, and if you have commitment to each other, that commitment, if the reader demonstrates just even trying to increase their commitment to their spouse and have that two-way street, the commitment is the safety net underneath the relationship that lets you step out and try things. Because if I do something and I fail and I don't have a strong commitment, it could end the relationship. So if we get rid of that fear and we can park that on the side, it kind of gives you and your spouse freedom to try things, because you know there's no plan B. It's not we're in it if it works out, but you're in it come what may. And if that security is there, then it allows you to venture out and try and fail. My wife has put her hand on my shoulder and she said, don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. So I don't have to be fearful that my mistakes can end the relationship, but she gives me grace and allows me to make those mistakes so we can both grow together.
I love that. It sounds like this is not a 50-50 deal, but each spouse bringing 100% to the table, and that's how you move forward in life.
You're right, 100%, Gail. Both people doing that, then you can move on and be extremely happy and fulfilled, and that's what we want to share with everybody, is that they're capable and deserving of that kind of relationship.
Well, I can't wait to get my hands on this book. When does it come out?
November 12th, Friday, and we're having a launch party here in Tampa at the JCC, the Brian Glazer, and it also happens to be my 27th wedding anniversary, Gail, exact same day.
Well, congratulations. I mean, I didn't know until today, or actually yesterday when I was pre-reading scripts, that Matthew would be in, but I know Matthew and his wife Kim and their beautiful children, and you're an amazing family, and you've always been an amazing couple that I've always looked up to, so I'm super excited to see this book.
Oh, you're very kind. We're real excited. Thanks for having me on today,
Absolutely. Gayle. Well, for more information, you can visit MatthewPHoffman.com. We'll be back with more Bloom right after this.